going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a bootleg vinyl haul, this time focusing on the Fab Four. Doing a Beatles-themed bootleg haul is a first for the channel, and I'm sure it is surely wanted because who doesn't love the Beatles and who wouldn't want a Beatles bootleg haul? Now, I acquired these releases during a very quick time frame, and this was right after I started watching the Get Back documentary on Disney+, so I was very much in the Beatles spirit, and as you'll see, the Get Back / Let It Be bug was really in me, and that very much influenced this haul. We have a lot to get through, so enough of the chit-chat. Let's jump into what this video is all about. First up is the complete Rooftop Concert. Now, it goes without saying that the centerpiece of what became the Let It Be film is the concert that the Beatles did on the rooftop of their Apple headquarters on Savile Row on January 30th, 1969. Very eventful, with tons of spectators on the streets witnessing the first live Beatles show since 1966, and the police making their way to the roof to stop the show. But needless to say, the band delivered a solid set of the new material that they had worked on for the album that ultimately became Let It Be. And I will say that after watching the Get Back documentary and seeing how initially everything was brewing badly at Twickenham and picked up at Apple Studios with Billy Preston on board, and seeing them pull off this show, it was quite emotional seeing it, and I think it stands out as the single best Beatles concert. But I digress. The show only features a select amount of songs. The original idea was to perform roughly 14 songs or a whole album's worth, but instead, we mainly have the tracks Get Back, Don't Let Me Down, I've Got a Feeling, One After 909, and Dig a Pony, some songs being performed 2 or 3 times. And as an added bonus on this vinyl pressing, we have a demo version of Hey Jude, which is rather loose sounding. It kind of sounds like a full band demo as well, which is quite intriguing. But overall, this is a very solid release. I should mention that Apple has released the full Rooftop show on streaming platforms, but there is no word if it will get a physical release. Perhaps it will make for a great record store day release of sorts, or it could have fit into a Let It Be Super Deluxe set, which obviously we've already gotten. But until then, until something happens physically, this bootleg will definitely suffice. The artwork is absolutely solid, features some shots from the Rooftop show, and for the sake of showcasing it, this vinyl pressing comes pressed on red vinyl. Next up is Get Back, the original Electra acetate. Now, this right here is the very first acetate that engineer Glyn Johns had compiled from the sessions for what would become the Let It Be / Get Back album. Now, this acetate was more than likely made on the same day as the Rooftop show on January 30th at Olympic Studios, and this was mainly done as a sort of reference mix for the Beatles to hear how these recordings sounded on record, so this was never intended for commercial release. And to add to the lore of Get Back and Let It Be, the radio station WBCN in Boston had obtained a reel-to-reel copy of this first reference acetate. Somebody had recorded it off air, and that became the basis of one of the most infamous and perhaps notable Beatles bootlegs called Come Back. And there was a lot of speculation as to how this acetate, as well as the proposed May 69 Glyn Johns Get Back album, got leaked out. Supposedly, John Lennon had given an acetate or a tape copy to a reporter, who in turn gave it to a disc jockey, and that is basically the going rumor. But this first acetate is rather interesting because we are treated to takes of songs such as Two of Us, Dig a Pony, and Don't Let Me Down, which are essentially alternate versions to the ones that we know and love from the Let It Be album, as well as various singles. Included on this is also the song Teddy Boy, which was a track that Paul would do on his first solo album called McCartney, and there's also a cover on here of Jimmy McCracken's The Walk. Now, what's worthy of noting is that the takes used for The Long and Winding Road and Get Back are the ones that make up the basis of what was used on the final Let It Be album. And to kind of touch on my experience watching the Get Back documentary, I always felt that Let It Be was one of the underdogs of the Beatles catalog, and I still feel that way because of Phil Spector's involvement. But hearing this Glyn Johns acetate, as well as the proposed Get Back album, which was released in the Super Deluxe box set, really gave me a new appreciation for this material, and the way it is presented is how it always should have sounded, but that is a whole other story. This release was put out by a label called Discotron, and it is numbered out of 500 copies. This is copy number 360. Does come with a nice printed inner sleeve with photos taken at Twickenham and Apple Studios. And the record itself comes pressed on marbled dark red colored vinyl. Next up is Psychedelic Beetles. This is a compilation of various recordings taken from the 1965 to 68 time frame, where they were really fleshing out their psychedelic sound. This is actually a repackaging of an older bootleg that came out in the early 1980s called Strawberry Fields Forever. Exact same track listing and contents, and this must be a fairly new release since I couldn't find anything on it on Discogs. Some of the interesting bits on here is an alternate version of Strawberry Fields Forever, The Bus, which is an instrumental from the sessions of Magical Mystery Tour, a stereo mix of The Inner Light, which just sounds so wide and nicely spread. It is just absolutely nice sounding. There is a demo of Fool on the Hill, which I believe appears on Anthology 2. A couple of TV appearances, such as All You Need Is Love from Our World and Hey Jude from David Frost. Things of that sort. It's a cool little portal into that brief period of the Beatles' legacy. I truly love the artwork on this bootleg. Features a cool 67 era photo on the front. And then on the back, we have an outtake from the photo shoot for Sgt. Pepper's. There is a nice glossy inner sleeve here. We have a cool band shot here. And then we have this sort of collage art piece on the back here with various band photos. There's the artwork from Abbey Road. There's a shot of them from kind of the 63 era. And there's a cool shot of them taken from behind, which is very nice. And the record itself comes pressed on this very nice piece of colorful marbled vinyl with some cool Sgt. Pepper photo shoot center labels. Next up is How Pink Is Your Panther? The Complete Peter Sellers tape. Very clever title given the Pink Panther and Peter Sellers connection. The story behind this particular release is that back in 1968, when the Beatles were working on the White Album, Ringo had given his good friend and actor Peter Sellers a tape of some early mono mixes of material that was to appear on the White Album. But on a side note to tie it all in with Beatle lore, Peter and Ringo had starred together in the film The Magic Christian, and parts of the film were done at Twickenham Studios, which was where the Beatles had rehearsed for the whole Let It Be, Get Back project, and even when they were still there, some of the set pieces for the film were being brought in. But anyways, that's a little bit of history for you. So Ringo had given Peter this tape, and then in 1989, Peter passed away, and in 1989, the tape went up for auction and sold for $3,000. Now, some mixes do sound very close to the final versions, and in some cases, there is some brief studio chatter before some songs, and if you are familiar with the White Album, you can very well point out the differences in the mixes. But with that said, there are some very pleasant surprises on this, such as the extended outro of Sexy Sadie that isn't featured on either the final stereo or mono mix. The version of Your Blues on this sounds very gritty and heavy. It is almost my default go-to version to listen to. Blackbird is beautiful because it does eliminate the bird sound effects towards the end of the song, so it just features Paul's vocals and guitar, very intimate sounding. And then featured on this tape and not on the final album is the George Harrison composition, Not Guilty, which is cool to see it featured here because at one point it was perhaps considered for the album. But listening to this release also gives you the sense of what a single album White Album could have potentially been with these particular songs selected. Now, that's not to say that these songs were destined to be a single album, or if Ringo compiled the tape himself and chose the songs, but it really makes you think, what if? And what perhaps gives this tape a very personal touch are the messages that Ringo includes at the end of side one, where he's basically clapping and his dogs are barking, and he says something along the lines of, flip the tape over if you want to hear some more weird music. And then on the beginning of side two, before Your Blues, there's this avant-garde African intro, which basically cuts off as the count-off for the song begins. It is rather freaky sounding. So if you are a huge fan of the White Album, it is safe to say that this Peter Sellers tape makes for essential listening. Last but not least, we have This Means a Lot. Now, this is a collection of various studio outtakes from the 1963 to 66 timeframe. Some stuff on here does appear on the anthology albums, but here we have some different mixes, whether they're in stereo or mono. And of course, there is some phenomenal stuff on here that is completely unreleased that sound so pristine. I am not an expert in regards to what Beatles tapes have leaked out, but the sound quality is certainly on par if they were to be released officially. There are multiple takes of A Hard Day's Night, I Feel Fine, and the song That Means a Lot, which was recorded during 1965, but never really came to fruition until it was released on Anthology 2. Then there are different takes of I'm a Loser, Norwegian Wood, which has this cool kind of Indian raga vibe to it, Here, There, and Everywhere, which is rather interesting to hear. And then we have things such as an alternate mono mix of Tomorrow Never Knows, which has more elements of tape loops and such that don't appear on the final version, and a stereo mix of a take of Mr. Moonlight, which appears on Anthology 1. So just things of that nature that a diehard Beatle fan can really sink their teeth into. This particular release has come out fairly recently in the last year or so, and I even remember seeing it when I was in Nashville with the youngest members of the VC. So if you see this out in the wild, definitely check it out. It is a rather interesting and enjoyable release. So there you guys go. That is my bootleg vinyl haul showcasing all things the Fab Four. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support this channel, be sure to check me out on Patreon. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.